Test, test. Let me see if I have my Twitch volume on. Yep. All right. I'm live. Ugh, it's been a while. Okay, how do I see if I'm trying this co-streaming thing. I wonder if I'm live now on YouTube also. How do I see I'm live? It just says this like powered by Restream. I don't like that. Wonder if I can manage it in I've never streamed on YouTube, so there's got to be a way to like manage it in the studio, right? Instead of on the main page. Oh yeah, here it is. So this podcast is probably been paused for how many years? I think the last episode that I did was actually I should put up the original past episodes. Maybe I put up like a little text thing. New announcements. Okay, restarting. Starting the oh, this is huge, man. What's going on here? Still on Spotify. What is the podcasters.spotify.com/ is it like show Mind Games Weldon kind of thing? I'm here it is. Yeah. I think anchor.fm/Mind Games Weldon. Probably shorter. Call in your question. Submit your question at. Oops. Should I make it black text, right? Or I'll just go like this. There we go. How's that? Good? Anyway, so normally when I ran this show, I would basically take call-in questions, and we'd do 3 per day. How do I ban this chat? It's okay. So the website itself is actually dead, but I'm working on getting it back. Do I just like ban the person to delete the chat message? So, how do I get you the PDF? So basically, here's what I did. Since I'm getting it back running, I need to get I have the URL back, and I need to put a server up and get the web address up. But in the meanwhile, all the videos are hosted somewhere else. The videos were never hosted on the website. They were hosted on Vimeo. And I have all the content in like a full kind of like PDF course, right? Even though it's not like you click through video by video and then underneath it is the video, but I have all the actual links to the surveys and the session guide. So I have all that as a PDF. So you can either email me and then I can email you back the PDF. Or if you're a subscriber still anywhere or resubscribe, it should be on Patreon and also in the Twitch channel and also in the YouTube channel. Or if you're in Discord, you can DM me in Discord, and then I can send you the PDF in Discord. But I can't send it over Twitter. They don't accept like file transfers. And actually, I should put it up. I should put it up in the Discord VIP chat. So let me like drop it in there and pin it, I guess. Is there a way to put announcements, or do I just? Okay, so what I'll say is I'm relaunching. Yeah. Hey, cackle? Not sure how to pronounce that. Where have I been the past 2 years? I've been, I guess, for a year and a half. I've been in Finland. For 6 months, I've been in LA. So just been, living life. We moved back. My wife finished her postdoc in LA. We moved back to Finland. I applied for and started a PhD. I'm a doctoral researcher now. So I applied for and started a PhD research program with a behavior change project at the University of Jyväskylä. And we resettled all the kids back into their schools in Finland again, which was handy. And I've been doing a lot of woodworking. Lots of woodworking on the house. And recently, I cleaned my desk and found all my old Mac stuff and put it back together. So I'm trying to get and decided I had 3 questions that I built up over the last year, still in the like call-in bank, and I was like, okay, I can kickstart the podcast with those 3 questions. Let me make this smaller and include one-step layered questions too. So let me go with like this size. I'll show past episodes. Okay, then we go with Mac program, backup. Bull in Twitch, Patreon, YouTube, subscription, or email / Discord past purchasers. Purchasers? That doesn't look like. How do you spell that? Purchaser. Or email Discord if past purchase. Okay. And then what else? Any other announcements? None yet. Okay. We'll just keep it at that. Yeah, I think it is. I think PhDs can tend to be a lot of work, usually about 4 years of work. So there you go. Cackle. That's how you pronounce it. Okay. Yeah, one step later, just maybe DM me right now, and then I'll see it after the stream. And for right now, let me post here. Playing games. Program is back up for subscribers. Twitch, Patreon, YouTube. Can find the PDF. You can also get. Here's the PDF. I guess I'll just say you can also get the PDF here. I'll just upload the file. Bum 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 ba ba bum bum. Okay, and pin. Okay, and I'll put it in the general chat. At here. Back on Twitch live again with. What's the name of this stream? The episode? Thanks, Cackle. Good to see you. The name of this episode is episode 283. WoW Cutting Edge Raid UI Distractions, Losing Momentum, and ADHD Athletes. So I have 3 good call-in questions for that. And Mac program is back up for subscribers, Twitch, Patreon, and if you were a past purchaser, DM me here or email for the PDF. There we go. Okay. All right, that's all set. No, the lessons no, the video's up. So the PDF has the link to the videos and the password. Like they're hosted on Vimeo. Still, they were before. Also, they were just embedded within the website. So now there's just the actual link directly to the video, kind of like an unlisted video, except instead of on YouTube, it's on Vimeo. And then basically for each session, so there's 47 sessions, right? And most of them had, the first 7 had learning logs, and then most of them had pretty important activities. I'd say there were about 10 to 15 essential activities that were scattered throughout the program. And so those, I'm out of water. And I hear the cat trying to break into my office. Most of those had like kind of essential activities scattered below. And so I've amalgamated those into basically a very long PDF that has like session 1, session 2, session 3 links. And then you go to that, and then there's a link to the actual activity or instructions or notes or whatever may have you. And I think that until I get the server back up that provides the website, I think that this is like a better way to keep everything centralized, because then it's like I can just keep updating this PDF, and it has a version history. You know, the current one is November 2023, so you can just see if there's like, oh, there's a January 2024 one. Okay. and you can check it out and see if there's anything added to it. But I went through and I listened to all the videos that I could, and I added all of the previous activities and then started going through and kind of like reformatting them. And yeah, once I get a solid like 3 months of podcasts out, and I've got this, so the streaming setup and the podcast is kind of essential. But once I have that, like I'm 3 months into this new habit, then hopefully I can get the actual website back up again too, the mindgames.gg. But turning on the server costs for that, just like boop, isn't like I'm paying for my daughter's wrestling camp, right now. So that's higher priority than the Mac server. And in the meanwhile, Vimeo provides all the video hosting, like really cheap, much cheaper than an actual web server, if I was to do it. And since they're all up there, it makes more sense. So, should we jump into the show? I have 3 questions for today, and then I guess I should make sure that oh, you know what? I need to create one more advertisement page that shows, hey, thanks, Blue Eyes, White Dragon. I assume the WHT stands for white. Good to be back. Good to be back indeed. Fig and friends. Hello. Welcome. Welcome to the show. Let me duplicate this. So I am going to change this for the submit a question. Submit a question. There we go. And where's the address? I guess it's going to be pretty complicated. There we go. Does that look centered? What about the other one? Nope. Let me move it. How's that? Does that look centered? I don't know. It's hard to tell. Anyway, okay, that's ready. Lock, back. Yeah, I'm excited. I finally found my camera battery. That's actually so the first few months I couldn't find my camera battery, then I couldn't find my camera power plug. Then the website was down, so I couldn't get the Mac program up. So I was like, there's no point in doing podcasts if I can't promote the Mac program. And yeah, mostly though I was just working on my PhD. But it's kind of entering like a good flow state right now, and I think it's a good time to re-kick off the whole podcast. So why don't we jump into that? So if you're new here, the way that this works is I hit record over there. Then I'm going to go through the podcast. So even though it's live, you're kind of going to be watching it happen. And essentially, I have 3 questions. They're call-in questions. You can submit your own call-in question. You can also submit a text question. I don't really have a good channel for that right now, but Twitter or DM works for that on Discord. And then so I answer the questions, and then I essentially end the recording, and I go back to the chat, and I'll catch up on any questions that you guys have asked or comments that you've made during the live show. I just won't be responding to your questions or comments during the actual recording of the podcast. So if that makes sense, you can also explain that to the people that come in, say like, hey, he'll get to your question after he's done with this monologue or something like that, if you want. But okay, let me make sure I have the sound actually working so you can hear the questions. And the order is looks like okay, turn this on. Can you guys hear this?
Hi, Weldon.
Oh, it's loud. Sorry. Turn that down a bit.
Retired from the military about 10 years ago. And
Okay, how's that? Is that too loud? The second time? Just the first time? Bit loud still. Okay. How about a good minus 7 decibels? Okay, I'm going to play it again.
Hi, Weldon. I retired from the military about 10 years ago and started playing WoW. By the way, I loved your...
Still pretty loud. Sorry. Okay, down again. Let's go minus 8.5.
Hi, Weldon.
All right, that's a little bit better. Anyway, it'll be balanced in the recording, so it's only the live people whose ears I'm blowing out. Sorry. How about my audio? By the way, I checked my mic a bunch, but I actually don't know now because normally before with the old mic I was doing touching. I was only touching it. Now I'm trying this whole like I'm gonna be a few inches away on it. So that's the new approach. All right. WoW, cutting edge raid UI distractions, losing momentum, and ADHD athletes. Okay, I'm just trying to remember my intro. I used to have a really just quick intro for this, and I knew what I was going to say, and now it's been like 2 years. 2 years since I've done it. Let me see if I can remember. Okay. I wonder if I should stop the intro multiple times and do retakes of it, or if I should try to like do a one take here. See if I can nail it. We'll give it a shot. Okay, let me take this away. Hello and welcome to the Ask Weldon Show, episode 283. Today's episode is on WoW, cutting edge raid UI distractions, losing momentum, and ADHD athletes. My name is Weldon Green. I'm a professional sports psychologist and esports psychologist. Oh, I can't say that. I said psychologist. It's a mistake I haven't made in a while. Psychology trainer. I think I've been talking a lot about sports psychologists, so it just rolled off the tongue. Hello and welcome to the Ask Weldon Show, episode 283. Today's episode is on WoW cutting edge raid UI distractions, losing momentum, and ADHD athletes. My name is Weldon Green. I'm a professional sports psychology trainer and esports psychology trainer, and as of a year ago, a doctoral researcher researching behavior change and health behavior change in the kind of like exercise psychology tangential field. It's kind of turned into behavior change over the years, all of these various sport and psychology fields that investigate how it is that people build habits and create habits and maintain habits. So, doctoral researcher in health behavior change. All right, the first question today is from Dawn, and that is the wrong question. Ha, I didn't type these up. I actually typed them out in the Excel sheet, and I never transferred them over to the text documents. So I'm going to stop recording. By the way, did you guys hear the splash screen? I think that there used to be sound on that, but I'm actually not sure if the sound imports or not. Do, 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 do. Okay, question one. Question one is it better to condition yourself to distractions or reduce distractions? Question two. how to deal with losing momentum and feeling outpaced and faster decision makers. And question 3, differences of athletes with ADHD and accommodating trainings. There we go. Okay, let's see how it works. Yes. 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 All right. So the transition didn't have sound. Interesting. I never really liked the sound that it had anyway for it. So maybe I need to find a new one and just like code it in there. So we'll see. All right. What is this? Take 3? I need one of those clippy things like to line up the... I'm not recording the audio independently, so... Hello and welcome to the Ask Weldon Show, episode 283. My name is Weldon Green, and today's episode is on WoW cutting-edge raid UI distractions, losing momentum, and ADHD athletes. And this is from the perspective of myself as a professional sports psychology trainer and esport psychology trainer, and as of about a year and a half ago, a doctoral researcher in health behavior change. So health behavior change is kind of like leaving off the health part, behavior change is like a kind of a new field that has become an amalgamation or a push together of these fields of research on habit and human behavior change in exercise psychology, sports psychology, and traditional psychology. And I think that it's kind of popping up in more and more departments, and in my university, specifically the sports department, under the category of health behavior change. Although it's looking at other types of behavior change. For example, how is it that you stop people from driving into floodwaters in Australia is a really good example of a research article that I recently read within this field. So they're looking at how it is that you change people's behavior, both on the individual level as well as, on the population scale and mass, things like that. So this podcast is a Q&A show. You call in your questions and I answer them today. I have 3 questions recorded. We can jump into them. But if you want to call in your questions, please check out the show on Spotify, Mind Games Weldon, or you can just use the old URL, anchor.fm, anchor like the boat anchor.fm/mindgamesweldon. You can go there on your phone, and you can also go there in the, I believe in the Spotify app, Mind Games Weldon, and you can call in your question there using the browser on your phone or the browser on your computer, and it takes essentially a pretty good audio sample of your voice. So when you do call in, you can expect that it'll have this radio-esque quality because they do a little tuning of it for you. But of course, if you don't want to be on camera with your voice, you can submit your question via text. Just DM me on Discord or on Twitter, and we'll try to get it in the show. Without further ado, let's jump into it. Okay, the first question is from Dawn.
Hi, Weldon. I retired from the military about 10 years ago and started playing WoW. By the way, I loved your podcast with Max. I've rated at the cutting...
Yeah, so I interviewed the guild of one of the guild leader / raid leader of one of the World First guilds that raids in the Raid for World First a year or so ago. You can find that on my YouTube channel. His name is Maximum, and he out-of-game leads and used to previously in-game lead one of the Team Liquid's raid team.
Cutting edge level, but to get there, I had to just strip all the graphics off, go to mostly verbal. Without doing that, it was overloading me, my processing. I couldn't prioritize. Now I'm running into similar problems with apps, with web pages, even textbooks, the bolds, the boxes, the colors. And I kind of, in hindsight, feel I may have shortchanged the chance to learn to adapt to where society's going, which to me is like this hyper visualization world. My question is, which is better? Adapt your environment to you if you can, or learn to adapt to your environment, or some combo? And how would I go about adapting myself in WoW? Thanks.
So this is a similar question to the kind of age-old question of should I listen to music while I'm studying or doing another task, or should I multitask? So I'll break it apart because I think that the question is very directly like, in the Zoomer age, should I have my UI like crazy all over my screen with extra information or not? But I'm going to try to generalize the question, and that is, should I have extraneous information that I'm trying to also have ready, uh, or and processing, or should I try to trim my environment to keep it pruned down, or does that kind of handicap me by getting me used to having a trimmed out environment and having a minimalist environment? Um, Unfortunately, this is a kind of both things answer. So first of all, you're only going to focus on the things that you need to focus on. So if you have if you have a bunch of stuff on your UI for your game, or you have a bunch of different tasks in front of you, and you have music playing and you have dishes, kids screaming in the background for dinner and things like that, but you are perfectly focused. Let's say you have the skill of 100% focus, or you happen to be in the zone, then you're going to be deploying 100% of your focus on the thing that you're going to be focusing on, and all the rest of the stuff, whether it's there or not, is going to be pretty irrelevant in that moment of focus. So I think the question is, how often do those things kind of pull you out of your focus when you need to be otherwise focusing, i.e., like how ADHD is your focus, and that kind of depends on your training. So if you find it very easy to just zone in and hammer in on a single thing, and it kind of doesn't matter if there's other stuff going on, then you don't need to worry so much about that. Or if you, let's say you're ADHD and you take a medication for it, then you probably don't need to trim your environment as much. Let's say that you meditate a lot and you want to practice that kind of application, like a live application of that refocusing skill, so you don't mind having the distractions there because you can refocus yourself back to the kind of like the most important information, then you can keep the environment whatever it is naturally full of. You don't have to try to trim it down. Now, as far as performance goes, I like to think of in-game UIs in pretty much any game as kind of a heads-up display for a fighter pilot. So as a sports psychology trainer, I try to think of as many kind of similarities or equates to esport athletes as I can in real-world scenarios, so that when I go look for research, I can say like, well, this research article is researching fighter pilots or researching hockey players, but these principles will apply or generalize to my population of athletes because XYZ. And so a lot of the research that I have devised trainings from or insight from is on shooters. That is, people who are shooting like actual guns and bows and arrows for sport, not FPS shooters. And then also pilots. And these are two populations that use like massing together a bunch of information, following strict protocols, fine motor movements, and performance under pressure and under stress. And so if you think about in terms of fighter pilots, you want your heads-up display to have just the information that you need, but you need to be able to get any information that you could need, at a moment's notice, either from your instrument panel, or from calling it up, or from putting it on your HUD, or from it popping up and then disappearing. So as I recommend, as a performer, you should have a totally trimmed heads-up display that provides the information that you need when you need it and eliminates duplicate information and unnecessary information. Just from a pure performance perspective, like that is what is the best. Now, whether or not that conditions you to, unfortunately, being desensitized to having these very busy environments that exist nowadays, I think that's true. Sensitization training is a part of a lot of sports psychology training protocols. So I think that let's say you're going to be performing on stage with a bunch of people screaming and cheering. Well, maybe you want to pipe in cheering and screaming and distracting sound and music to your headphones so that you get used to that. That's literally what we did on some of the pro teams I worked on when we were trying to get them ready for stage. We would pipe in the white noise, we'd pipe in the crowd noise, we'd pipe in cheering, we'd even like talk to them during the game to get them used to that, kind of like zoning us out. If they would hear the announcers in the background, stuff like that. So I think that you can do that sensitization training. However, I'm not sure that you need to do it all the time. I think that you could just do it before a big performance for 2 or 3 sessions or 1 or 2 weeks. It's very similar to this is a totally different realm, but in competitive swimming, we don't do CO2 training, CO2 tolerance training all the time. So when you're underwater and you feel like you have to come up and breathe, most of the time it isn't lack of oxygen that's forcing that reflex. It's the CO2 poisoning, like the rising CO2 level in your blood that's saying, like, get out of the water and breathe, like take a breath. So that's kind of the thing that you do before a big meet or a big competition is you spend about 10 to 14 days raising your tolerance for CO2 in the blood by forcing yourself to hold your breath underwater for longer and longer periods under effort. And that training doesn't hold. It doesn't stick. It's not like muscular training where you build stronger muscles and you keep them for a while. It just disappears the moment you stop doing it. So it's probably similar with this distraction training from what I can glean from my experience. I don't think there's any research on this really, but I can tell you this kind of training goes away immediately. You adapt to like a completely new environment. So I would say prepare for a big event with this style, and otherwise trim your living and performance life environment to necessary information and to be as peaceful as possible. Now, this doesn't apply to, for example, my wife and I were living a very minimalist life when we moved to Finland. I mean, we had like white walls, very limited furniture, very few possessions, and then we had a baby. It's literally proven through research that babies without toys develop not smaller brains, develop less well than kids with a lot of toys, so you can't apply these kinds of principles of having this low distraction life to every single stage of development. You can't apply it to people who are in the womb or 0 to 3, 0 to 5 years old. These people need a lot of stimulation, and it seems like the more the better, as long as it's good stimulation. It doesn't seem like it is a bad thing to be overstimulated at that age when the brain is just figuring everything out. So, apply these things to the adult world and don't extrapolate them down to every level of development, and don't extrapolate them to other populations. If you're neurotypical or not neurotypical, this could be very different rules. So that's the answer to that question. Sorry it was long and involved. It's the first podcast back, so expect, and I've been doing my PhD for a year and a half, so expect overly verbose and probably way too academic answers to these. I'll get back to the snappier, more effective sports psychology trainer advice, probably the more that I do it, get back into it here. So let's go on to question number 2 from BJ about Super Smash Brothers, actually.
Hey there, Weldon. Hope you're doing well. Today, I have a question about Super Smash Brothers and I guess fighting games in general. My friend was having an issue with when he's playing against his opponent, sometimes he'll feel overwhelmed, or he used the term outpaced by sort of the speed and the decision making that his opponent is using. So my question to you is, how would you deal with somebody that's just making decisions way faster than you are? Would the answer be to somehow increase your level of decision making to sort of match pace with anyone you may come up against? Or would it be better to find a way to slow down your opponent and bring the pace back to somewhere you're more comfortable with? Or some third thing that you may know that I don't know, but I'm trying to decide between those two. And how would you approach it?
All right, BJ, thanks for the question. So there's really 2 questions I have to answer in here. One is about momentum and pacing in competitive sports, and the other one is about decision-making speed, and kind of a skill differential question. So let's deal with the momentum and the pacing one first. Momentum is like one of those things that's not a thing, but it's actually a thing. It's researched, but it's hard to find, and it's one of the things where like there's solutions that work, but they're all individual. So it's very similar to the concept of lucky underwear. Lucky underwear is proven to work for basketball free throw shooting, at least. It's also been duplicated in other sports, but the most famous paper is the one about basketball free throw shooting, where lucky underwear was proven to be an additive to skill, but only if you believed in it. If you didn't believe in it, it didn't work. If you did believe in it, it did work. So it's one of those things where it's like, actually, it's in the brain. It's not the underwear itself. So momentum is one of those things where, like, when you are, you need to think of momentum with reference only to yourself or to your opponent, right? So if your opponent does not believe in momentum and doesn't feel it in any way, then you can't disrupt their momentum because it's a purely psychological construct. And if you don't believe in momentum and don't really feel momentum, kind of, then it's not going to affect you. And so you can either you can train yourself not to believe in momentum and not to think of it that way, although it's very hard because it's kind of like a natural state of panic as you might notice, as you're losing and as you're winning, you get lazier. But you can also just try to adopt a more present moment performance mindset. So I had players who were really experienced players and were very accustomed to losing from any situation, way far ahead in the match, and then lose, and way far behind and then win, right? So this is a quality of experience. And when you have that knowledge, your momentum doesn't affect the momentum that should be there doesn't affect you as much. So let me start by breaking it apart into pieces. There's 4 different phases of momentum that you need to be concerned with for yourself. You're really far behind, or you're right behind, you're right ahead, or you're really far ahead, okay? So if you're really far behind, people generally lose hope and get sloppy instead of realizing that they need to play more than perfect to catch up, right? Also, if they're super far behind and they're trying to play more than perfect to catch up, sometimes they'll freeze up and they'll choke on that kind of pressure. And so you got to recognize that you need to keep loose in your reactions and not overthink things. And at the same time, you need to take it very seriously that you're trying to catch up and not make silly errors. Okay? And then there's the really far ahead where people get sloppy because they're lazy, because they think they're just going to win and they can make more mistakes. And for that, you just need to make sure that you're constantly refocusing on the game and recommitting to not playing not to lose, but rather continuing to be aggressive and play to win the way that you would if you were neck and neck. Okay? So playing not to lose is something that people who are really far ahead, they're like, oh my gosh, if I lose now, it looks really bad. So I just have to make sure not to make any mistakes. It's kind of like a bad mindset. All right, then you have the momentum of being right in front or right behind. And these are kind of the best places to perform at. You're neck and neck and you're just ahead and you're feeling super competent and you're like, I got to keep this lead, and you're trying really hard and being right behind. These are the 2 kind of high performance zones that are close to neck and neck. And so that's where you want to be, or that's if you were in one of the outer zones, such as really far behind or really far ahead, you want to push yourself, fake it till you make it by pushing yourself towards one of the other 2. Like believe that you're right behind and you can just catch up, or believe that the other person is breathing down your neck. And then you might act like the other person is breathing down your neck. So you can kind of use momentum coding in your brain to manipulate yourself by telling yourself that that's the actual scenario. Okay, so that's momentum in a nutshell. And then your opponent supposedly has that too, so you can kind of play into that. By if they're really far ahead, you can expect them to make more mistakes. And if they're really far behind, you can expect them to give up more easily and feel more pressured when they're trying to be error-free. If you play a game that has very few forced errors, such as I'll give you an example with, let's say League of Legends is a video game where there are, no. World of Warcraft's a perfect example. There's almost no forced errors in World of Warcraft. Forced errors from the boss, like the boss does the same thing every single pull. It's like learning a dance, a ballroom dance that you memorize every step, right? So almost every error is an unforced error. It's like one that you do. It's not one that another human goes and makes an unpredictable move, and then all of a sudden you have a forced error. Because they forced you to guess wrong or to have to manipulate a skill that you weren't prepared to do, or that you messed up the execution of. So if you're playing a game like that has very few forced errors, then you're not really relying on momentum with the opponent in play, and you can't really affect their momentum. You can kind of only affect your own unforced error rate, and that's done through focus, through keeping your eye on the prize. But in Smash Brothers, your example, lots of forced errors to be had and lots of unforced errors to be made. And so you can look to force errors on people by continuing to be super, super aggressive. For example, if they're trying to make them if they're trying to play perfectly from behind and not make a single other mistake, you can put them in a position to make a bajillion more mistakes by trying to force their hand being more aggressive. So yeah, you can play into momentum that way. There's a whole bunch of little quips and rules for each phase of momentum on what you should do to yourself and what you should do to your opponent, and I have that list, and I can put it in my Discord. So if you go below this video or you search for the Mind Games Discord or Mind Games Weldon Discord, probably you can find the link somewhere, and then I will put it in the, see, what channel should I put it in? Maybe the Ask Weldon show? Yeah, I'll put it in the Ask Weldon show, and I will reference this episode. Okay? So there you go. I got to get back to the navigation here. Okay, so the second thing that you mentioned was, help me out here. I kind of forgot in the question. Oh, yeah, decision speed. Okay, you don't make decisions faster or slower than somebody. Well, you do a little bit, as in, like, they might have a better diet than you, and so they have healthier glial cells in their brain, and so their processing is milliseconds faster than you. But that's not really relevant. That's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about like when somebody hits your knee and your reflex speed is nanosecond faster. What you're talking about is, decision making in performance situations and executing a pre-prepared motor skill in response to stimulus. And the reason that some things seem faster or slower is that, first of all, you have to understand what is a sports skill. So a sports skill, as I like to say it, is essentially a sports movement. Everything in sport requires a movement. It's a motor connection, okay? So if you're talking about something like chess, I don't consider that a sport. It doesn't mean that sport psychology principles don't apply, but this basic movement, which is the sport movement, which is your eyes see a pattern, the pattern is recognized, or your ears, your eyes, your sensory input puts together a pattern. The pattern is recognized by your brain because of vast volume of training and conditioning. You pull that pattern out, you apply the meaning programming to it. You have a response in your motor cortex, and the response is an automatic execution of a skill that you, again, have trained a lot. So it's either a click or moving your arm or positioning the mouse or some sort of regulated and controlled coordinated movement. Like a ball is coming towards you and you put that other pattern and you plan to hit it. A good example of why I say pattern and not reaction is that a good example occurs in baseball. So you don't actually see the ball and try to hit the ball in baseball. You see a shape of a throw. You see the ball when it's like leaving the pitcher's hand, and that's the last that you see the ball before you hit it. It flies too fast through the air for the optics to be processed and for you to get the movement to your motor neurons. So you're essentially putting together this pattern of meaning, interpreting it, predicting where the ball is going to be using your vast experience and training, and then executing like a coordinated motor movement to hit the ball at a certain spot. And if it's there and your bat meets it, great. So you just did a baseball skill, right? So this is why I say that this is a pattern recognition game, not a like reaction game. You're not looking at things and reacting to them. So essentially what I could say is that your friend is playing a person who they aren't making decisions faster. They have more elements incorporated into their pattern than your friend does. So instead of trying to see what move they're doing and reacting, they're able to kind of see what move the other person's doing and reacting, thinking 3 moves ahead, also planning the strategy overall, also thinking of their momentum and your opponent's momentum, and they already are doing all of that before they're even thinking about it because they've stretched themselves, they've pushed themselves to have to incorporate this information into the whole play. And you can train this. In fact, some people spend their entire sport life or their entire video game life at a very low level because they never try to push themselves into incorporating more information into their decision-making process. Going back to the first question of the show with Dawn, if you play World of Warcraft and you repeatedly do the same thing every single pull and you never try to incorporate more and more complex decisions, then you're just going to be learning a ballroom dance every single time, and you're going to be stuck with the skills that that you developed to learn the first ballroom dance. You're never going to become a better and better dancer. Whereas if you're constantly saying like, okay, I'm going to ballroom dance while holding a teacup full of tea in one hand. Okay, I'm going to ballroom dance, but I'm also going to like balance a plate on my head at the same time. You're kind of like challenging yourself with these more and more complex patterns. And then that pushes you to be able to incorporate more things in your decision making. You can decide which step you're supposed to take next in the dance while also knowing exactly how to balance the teacup and the spinning plate on your head. Maybe the teacup should be on your head and the spinning plate should be in your hand. I think that would be a lot easier. Anyway, going back to the Smash example, actually I do this more in FPS training. So I train this a lot more in League of Legends and in FPS, but I'll try to extrapolate this to Super Smash Brothers. I would say that your friend should take a skill that he usually is not considering. So, for example, he should be trying to plan what he's going to do next or what his opponent's going to do next while still reacting to and countering the thing that the opponent is doing now. Or he should intentionally be... I don't know if this is a good parallel, but in ping pong, you get to a level where you're returning people's ping pong serves and balls like pretty well, and you're getting into a volley okay, but you're not thinking yet about what you want to do with the ball yourself, like where you want to send it. If you want to try to send it at an angle, or always put it on the right side or left side, or which hand you want to hit it to. And once people start thinking about that, they usually mess up. They're just like, okay, I'm going to hit it to their left hand, to their backhand, because they have a weak backhand. And then they miss. And they're like, oh, I'm trying too hard. I should just try to return it. I shouldn't try to aim it also. That's the wrong instinct. So anytime that your friend is playing and they're like, I need to focus on just this one skill, no. Tell him that he needs to, or she needs to, try to do the same execution skill and also focus on the additional skill that they want to kind of layer onto their decision. And what they'll do is they'll build up a larger pattern that eventually, through lots of play and training, will start to become fluid and possible when before it was not possible. And that's how you speed up your decision making in sport. You don't get faster by like narrowing things down. You get faster by building up more and more complex patterns of stimulus that you're able to incorporate into your kind of reflex response and knowing what to do in that situation. Because it has to be pretty automatic to be fast enough for sport. So I hope that answers the question. Again, getting very involved here. Hopefully I'm able to trim it down in future shows. But let's jump on to the third question from one of our staple questioners, Ryan.
Hey, Weldon, when working with athletes who have ADHD, is there anything that you do differently than you would with athletes who don't have ADHD? And then I guess what are the similarities between the two? I imagine there's a lot of overlap and some differences.
Yes, and before I answer that, I wanted to say to remember that I also do the show live and that you can check that out on Twitch and YouTube. Since Twitch has allowed like co-streaming, I'm going to give it a shot and try to stream it on YouTube as well. And I'm having people who are chatting me right now, and after the show, I'm going to answer their questions and their follow-up questions and kind of chat with them. So if you want to check out this show live, this is the recorded video portion that I'm recording right now, but I am live. To those of you in chat, hello. You can go to my twitch.com/MindGamesWeldon or YouTube where you're watching it here, MindGamesWeldon. You can follow along or turn on some sort of notification that tells you when I go live. I'm going to try 2 different times this year for this show. I'm going to try in the morning in California, and also I'm going to try in the evening in California, and we will see how that works. I'm situated in mainland Europe, so in Finland right now. And so time zones for me are going to be really early in Finland or really, really late in Finland, kind of like after the kids go to bed. So that's when we're going to give it a shot. And I have to point out also that you can submit a question for the show on anchor.fm/MindGamesWeldon. It's probably the easiest way to do that. And yeah, okay, that's better set up there. And you can check out the Mind Games program at my Patreon, patreon.com/MindGamesWeldon, which is kind of like I guess, how I'm going to be supporting the show this run around. But I'm working on getting the website back up, mindgames.gg, and in the meanwhile, I'm going to be hosting everything on Patreon and on Vimeo, and you can check it out there, either as a Twitch subscriber or a YouTube subscriber or a Patreon subscriber, or if you were a previous purchaser of the program, you can message me and you can get a copy of the program. It's a 47 video course online training in mindfulness, acceptance, and commitment, which are the kind of like essential skills for stepping into sports psychology training for your specific sport, and is geared toward esport, but it works for performance domains across traditional sport as well, and even for people who are doing, hobbyist stuff and general life skills. Want to be a better cook, want to be a better husband, better father, things like that. I have found all of these things very, very useful for those kinds of pursuits as well. So once again, please submit questions for the show so that I can continue it now. I'm using up my 3 questions that I stored over this long break. And since I want to kick it off as a regular show, I'm going to have to fill in content until I get more questions. So you can call in your question at anchor.fm/mindgamesweldon or on the Spotify version of that page. I think they're forwarding the URL now since Spotify bought this podcasting platform. And check out patreon.com/mindgamesweldon or subscribe on YouTube or Twitch to get access to the Mind Games program, which is my old training program, launched in 2015, and has happily helped over 3,000 people who've participated in it. Although I noticed that when I got up to like the 20th day of the program, there were only about 1,200 views on the videos. So I think that about a half or a third of the people who were interested in it progressed past the second week. So I did notice that. I'll have to check that out, see what's going on. But it's kind of like one of the things that you get when you don't run a live classroom. When I was a professor, I could handhold and guide every single one of my students like through the course and guarantee that all of them pass. But doing an online automated video course, it's kind of like people have to come with their own inbuilt motivation and habits in order to kind of like pursue it all the way through. And it's a rather long and intensive program, although I tried to layer as much value into the beginning as possible. And maybe that suited the people who were suited by it. So again, back to the original question from Ryan. ADHD and coaching. Do I accommodate ADHD? So first of all, in the sports psychology world, there are people who are trained for sports psychology training, and there are people who are trained for clinical psychology who then go off into sport. So it kind of works like this. You're a sport coach, you become interested in psychology of performance, and you go and you get a degree, and you become a sports psychology trainer with a background in sports coaching. And then there are people who are clinical psychologists or psychiatrists, and they become interested in sport or were interested in sport, and they leave the clinical world and they start dealing with healthy populations, that is, athletes. And so, although sports psychology trainers are decently good at diagnosing some of these diseases, because any program that's worth its salt will cover the DSM manual and the various different ways of recognizing depression, ADHD, and eating disorders, because these are the most common things that you kind of run into immediately in sport. What we're trained to do is immediately recommend them. So we're going to make sure that we recommend them to a clinical psychologist or a clinical therapist or a clinical psychiatrist to get treated. And then as far as how it is that training is accommodated, it's so individual and so personal. So I don't think that there's like a general way that you say like all ADHD people need this, because it depends like how is their treatment going? Are they using a kind of like ADHD drug? And I think that or not. And I think that generally speaking, my adaptations for all of my training have been to the individual and not to the disorder, if that makes sense. Or rather, not to whatever it is that is defining them as a neurotypical, but rather to the person and accommodating kind of like what they need and what motivates them. Because a lot of the fundamental wiring of motivation and behavior change still functions with neurotypical situations like OCD, ADHD, and depression. It's just that there's a lens through which the brain is taking in information and able to put out behaviors. And since I am not the person who is supposed to be dealing with that, I try to make sure to not cross that line into the clinical practice in how it is that I'm recommending to them to deal with it. Always pushing them towards talk therapy or medication if that is what suits them. But definitely I have found from people telling me that, for example, the Mind Games program, which is a mindfulness-based acceptance commitment program built off of mindfulness acceptance commitment therapy and the CBT elements that I use, which are built off of cognitive behavioral therapy, that these kinds of therapized sports psychology training programs work really well with therapy populations, like people who have ADHD or OCD or depression. And so it's kind of like easier for me to deliver interventions with these clinical populations or populations that may or may not be clinical in that way than a traditional life coach or performance guru or whatever who's just coming at it from the, here's a video course perspective or like kind of a guru perspective, because I have a theory behind the work that I do, and it's all therapy-based theory, and everything that I do is extrapolated from that in kind of the sports psychology world, because that's where we evolved from. And so I have I would say, like everybody who works from this sector and is trained, have an advantage in that our stuff just works with those populations without any kind of lot of need of adaptation, because that's originally what it was for anyway. So, I don't do particularly any adaptation to the disorder, but rather I do it for the person that I'm working with. All right, that's the show for today. Again, thank you for tuning in. I'm going to go now to the live audience and chat with them for a bit. If you're on YouTube and watching this recording, make sure to check out the show live by following me on one of those channels, or go to my Patreon, patreon.com/MindGamesWeldon, and you can find more information there, as well as the Mind Games program that I was talking about. And call in a question now. Everybody who's watching and has a question at this point and is still around, it's because you were hanging out so long to see if I was going to answer the deep secret inquiry of your heart. So go to anchor.fm/mindgamesweldon, or whatever the podcasters.spotify.com/pod/show/mindgame, whatever it is, the new URL for they got to simplify that. I mean, that's ridiculous. Find my podcast. Maybe the link is in Discord. I'll just put it under the description of every single video I can find, and call in your question, because if I'm going to come and do this show tomorrow, I need at least 3 people to call it in. Get to it. Okay. Hi, Twitch. And YouTube, actually. Hello to you. Sanctum of Domination? What is SOD? Hey, Yoon. Coach Yoon from Reddit. Long time. Hope you're well. Hey, yeah, long time no see. And welcome. Oh, Season of Mastery. Or whatever. That thing? Is it Season of Mastery? Do you mean the one where it's like you die forever? Season of Discovery. Oh, Season of Discovery is the one where you just level up to 20. Has that started already? That's kind of cool. No, I'm not. I don't have a subscription right now. I'm working on my PhD. So, no time for WoW. PhD is keeping me busy in that regard, unfortunately. Fortunately. Also, it's wintertime, so I have to shovel snow like multiple hours a day, because I have basically like a 9-car parking lot as a driveway, and if it snows, for example, 6 inches or 10 centimeters in a day or overnight, I'm kind of busy the next 24 hours to get it out of the lot all by hand. And then on top of that, yeah, the whole for children. I'd rather do this podcast than play WoW. It's just more fun. I was going to ask you where you've been. Your content helped me get my desired ELO, a master's degree, and a new job. Wow. Fantastic. Way to go, man. Yeah, well, I'm going to clip that and use it to advertise that I'm back. So, thanks. When I post this, where's my downloads folder? When I post this new episode on Twitter, I'll submit it. I'll use your chat here as my advertisement. What was I going to type here? Yeah. .com/mindgamesweldon. That's for the Patreon. And then what is the one for podcasts? Anchor.fm/mindgamesweldon. But what's the the actual one? It's this one right here. Is this where you can call in the show? Yeah, send voice message. So here it is. I'll submit it to the Twitch chat. Or if you go to this episode that I'm going to upload into Spotify, there's actually a Q&A question now directly in the Spotify app after the episode. So they added this thing where, as a podcaster, you can have a question that you ask, and like people can either comment on the episode or they can answer the question. And then the question, so you can submit a Q&A question after every single show within the Spotify app. So I think I'm going to do it that way in the future, but right now this episode is not posted yet. And so the generic link that I would advertise is this like podcasters.spotify.com/pod/show/podcast. The link is insane. I mean, why? But anyway, it's in the Twitch chat there. You can see it. All right. Nixus. Nixus is asking on YouTube, where is the Mind Games course located? I kind of want to refresh the knowledge I learned. Yes, let me see if I can post in the YouTube chat. How do I get to my live stream here? So I think I click here. In the YouTube chat. Let me turn that down. Pause it. Okay, so Nixus, I hope you're still here, but yes. I have a download with all the information. You get it automatically as YouTube, Twitch, Patreon, sub, or email me. Oh, you are here. Okay, email me / Discord DM if you are a previous purchaser. Oh yeah, I cut my hair off, didn't I? Didn't I have long hair when I moved back to Finland? Hey, Sadji. Yeah, I mean, it's good to be back. So I'll post this in the YouTube link too. Here's the Patreon, and here is the place where you go to. I don't think that I don't think the Patreon link had the HTTPS in it. Whoops. But anyway, let me fix that. Yeah, when I moved back to Finland, I had long hair, and it was the middle of winter, and it was great. But I cut it off when the summer came because it's like getting really hot in this country now in the summer due to global warming or climate change or whatever. And so, definitely gotta had to do something about that. Turned down the heat on my brain, so that was important. But the problem is, I still don't want to pay for haircuts, and it's not like haircuts in LA were expensive, and it's not like they got any cheaper when I moved here. They're also expensive in Finland. So I'm just back to shaving my head again with a razor, basically, like a buzz cut. I'm much better at giving my kids haircuts because I can actually do something. You know, they're in front of me, but doing my own is really challenging. Can't get scissors up there at the right angle and whatnot. Anyway, whew, it's good to have the show over. That was a doozy. Hey, Super Soldier. Yes, I'm gonna gear it towards whatever I get the questions of. So basically, people call in questions and I answer the questions that are posed. If there are a lot of World of Warcraft questions, then then I'm geared toward World of Warcraft, if that makes sense. And if there's not, then maybe I could do a poll. How do I do a poll on Twitch? Create a new poll. What content for sport psychology? So we got WoW, we got League of Legends, we got FPS, we got fighting game community, mostly Smash. Okay. There we go. I put the poll up. I'm getting my PhD in, well, I guess the official title of the PhD is sports psychology, but I would say it's in human behavior change, or in this case, health behavior change, and more specifically in the integrated model of behavior change, because that's what we're using in our intervention program. And I'm like a few months in. I guess I started officially in September, even though I was working with the intervention program for a year before that. But I'm working on my first publication right now. It's a paper. It's going to come out when it comes out. That's how academic papers work. I'm actually doing the data analysis right now, and it's a pretty complex new method that I've never done. League of Legends is winning by a lot. 2 votes for League, 1 vote for Smash, and 0. Okay, so there you go. 3 votes. Smashing success for League of Legends. Letitian Mad Hatter says, since you trim them pretty short, you can technically use each haircut as practice to dry scissors on yourself. Or whenever you don't like the result, you can just trim it anyway. Yeah, true. I just don't see the point. Like, I don't know what cut I would ever do. When my hair was longer, it was kind of nice to have a taper and then the top to be styled. But I can taper with the razor and then the top. As a guy, I don't really need to use scissors to style it. I can just get it all to a certain length, and then that's all that's really required, I guess. Fighting game community needs mental help for sure. The FGC definitely has the most amount of rage and racism and sexism and insanity and de-evolution of humanity. I would say that's an accurate assessment. In terms of esports scenes, it's probably the most toxic, but also the most... It's one of those things where it's like it's the most grassroots, and therefore the least corporate, and therefore the least cleaned up. So it's not like fighting game community is bad, rotten in all parts. It's just they still have the stuff that is now not allowed in other shinier esports because of the sponsorships and the kind of corporatization of it, which has made it a much safer space, to be honest. I approve of all of that because it's ridiculous what people do in some of these niche communities where they think that their actions don't have any consequences and they can say whatever they want behind the shield of anonymity. But yeah, fighting community in terms of needing mental help. Well, I'm not really a mental health person, so but yeah, in terms of performance behavior change, it's possible that they need a lot of help. I think World of Warcraft might need the most for that. Kint says, "Man, I remember waking up to watch your podcast in the early morning a few years back. It was great. Good to see her back." Yeah, well, I'm in the same exact house, different room. Although I'm probably gonna move down back to the room where I was doing that stuff before soon, and maybe I'll do some more out in the garage where my woodworking equipment is. We can chat while I woodwork. Actually, I think I can stream on my phone and just do it in the garage while I'm woodworking. So maybe we could combo building a box, building a cabinet, and sports psychology. As long as I don't cut my hand off with a table saw. Super Soldier says, Tekken 8 is bubbling. Would love to see you help in that facet. Not sure if those players are aware they need sports psycho. Yeah, it doesn't really matter if people are aware or not. It's kind of like you go where people need help and you spread a message and people use it because it helps them win. So Tiny Chambers says, nice that you're back. What did you do? I'm a sports psychology trainer for professional esport athletes. So I won a bunch of championships in League of Legends and did a podcast and released a video course that people were really a fan of. And then I spent the last year and a half starting my PhD and moving house back to Finland from LA because we finished up there, what I was doing there and what my wife was doing there. And then finding my camera battery, that took 9 months, honestly. Oh, what did I do in the meantime? Carpentry, woodworking, snow shoveling, biking kids to hobbies, teaching them how to use cell phones and Google Maps so they can get around town by themselves. I have 2 mobile children now who just go downtown and loiter. It's kind of weird. They're I'm going to go down after school and buy supplies to make a dragon out of paper. See you later. Okay, bye. Have a good day. But then I also have 2 kids that are still very dependent on me, so that's nice. And I have a daughter in wrestling, so pretty soon she's going to be able to wrestle me, I think. Hopefully. Take me out. All right. I don't know. I mean, we can keep chatting. I don't have any real games that I'm playing right now that aren't on console. I'm playing Vampire Survivors on console. I come a year late to all of these roguelites. So I'm playing the new Mana Spark DLC and Vampire Survivors, and probably in a year I'll play the new Zelda game. A year late, or maybe the new WoW expansion. I don't know. But yeah, I don't have anything I can really play while we're chatting, and I finished the show, but I can answer questions. Super Soldier says, I've entered a field where I'm brand new and battling it out if I'm an imposter and whatnot. Quick tip to overcome that and be the best. Well, I'm not a fan of trying to be the best. I'm a fan of quality work that people can be proud of, that makes them happy. Because I don't think that we really get a lot of places as a human species by pursuing extreme ends, like being the best or having the most growth or doing those things. Like, I think that a lot more we should measure our success by quality and sustainability and kind of like health happiness index of balance that you have to your life. So I think that that's quite important compared to achievement. But it's really good to tell yourself that you're trying to be the best in order to motivate yourself to strive. So if that is what works in terms of self-messaging, that's really key. Imposter syndrome sucks, and it never goes away, ever. I don't even think it reduces that much, or when it does reduce, it's because of bad reasons. It reduces because you like win, or you get promoted, and you're like, I'm not an imposter. And then something happens, and you're like, I'm an imposter again. So I think that imposter syndrome, the best thing to do is to learn to not have imposter syndrome rather than to try to get rid of it through accomplishments or time. Like, it's not going to go away at time. It's going to reduce with time, and then it's going to come back when something bad happens, like when you get fired, or when you have to move to a different team, or when somebody says a bad comment, or when you meet somebody who's exactly like you, but, better and 2 years advanced in their career. And so I would say, don't try to just ignore it and let it go with time, and don't try to solve it by becoming amazing. Rather, find logical arguments against it and build up strong self-talk scenarios and resilient beliefs around why it doesn't matter if you're an imposter or not. Like, what you know is what you know, and what you don't know is what you don't know. And being a curious and authentic person is quite important, even if you have to kind of like hide some of your, let's say, lack of knowledge or lack of experience for the benefit of your career, for the benefit of your family, as happens a lot in corporations, where you have to be like, if I say what I really think, or if I say what I don't really know, it could affect my job and my career, and therefore affect my family. Like, that's a scary place to be in, and people make decisions about that based all the time. But, don't let that affect your mental health, I would say. All right, Trevor Baker says, you mentioned having over-verbose and way too academic answers. Instead, you would like to have snappy responses. Is this what you think your audience wants, or do you enjoy doing both? I think just before, when I was doing the show, like 2 years ago, I was pretty in the thick of it with training. So I was doing training multiple times a day. And when you're doing nonstop training, you kind of like encounter all of the issues that are asked about on this show. And you have all of the answers because you deal with it every single day. And for the last 2 years, I haven't been doing any training. I've just been doing research. And so I'm answering the questions like a researcher. Lots of information and little practicality. I don't really want the show to be for a bunch of other researchers. Like, if there's like 10 academics here and 0 people who need help in the moment, that's not my best outcome. My best outcome is 10 people who need help and 1 interested researcher for a more in-depth conversation. So, in my opinion, the actual Q&A show should always gear towards providing enough scientific background to validate the information, but to be mostly practical information for what the person could be doing within the next week to like improve their life. And that is what the show kind of like honed in as before. And so I want to push it back that direction. But yeah, I could tell that I was waxing poetic on the research for a bit. I mean, I know when I'm looking at the timer of the show and it's like 20 minutes into the recording and I'm still on the first question, something is going wrong, because normally I can get 15 to 20 minute shows up on YouTube with 3 questions and 3 answers. Tiny Chambers asks, are you listening to a lot of audiobooks? Nope. I mostly listen to podcasts and read books. I think audiobooks are like too slow for me. I've never been able to get into them. I can read so much faster than I can listen. It's just not appealing to me. Israel Lowell says, I got my master's in sport and performance psychology, but I have been working in a different field for the last year. Any advice on getting more experience in the sports psych field in a part-time capacity on the side? So I don't have any advice, but I'll tell you what I did. I was working as a teacher, and I wanted to get into, professional training. And so I went and found online communities of hobbyists doing the sport I wanted to get into, which happened to be at that time esport and swimming. And I started coaching a swim team for like $4 an hour, like at the beginner level, right? Well, actually, in Finland, it's the advanced level too, because it's not really a paid position in Finland to be a youth sports coach. But I wasn't really interested in becoming a professional swimming coach. Like, that's not my plan. Well, it was my plan when I came to Finland, but when I found out that they don't pay youth sport coaches here. Anyway, my focus in swimming was youth sports, so that's never going to be a professional job in Finland. It is going to be in the U.S., but not here. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is find the hobbyist group or the lowest level group below kind of like where people start to have paid sport psychologists and volunteer to do a workshop, and integrate yourself with that community and practice your workshops until you can find some sort of like amateur that is doing it, but they're paying to do it teams, and like try to get them to buy your workshop for $15 or $15 an hour or whatever, which is what I did. And I could get them at $15 an hour. So I'd just sell a workshop for $30 for 2 hours, and then I would meet with each of them for an hour, for 15 minutes an hour. And then I just kept doing that until my demand for purchases exceeded the amount of side gig time that I had. And then I doubled my price, went from 15 to 30. And that pulled back on the demand. And then I kept doing that until I was training for more hours, or I had more demand for training purchases than I had extra hours to actually sell. Then I doubled my price again. And then, so I stopped doubling my price when people stopped hiring me, and I instead just like started adding it by 10. So, but I figured it was better at first to just exponentially grow the price. That's what I did. Maybe it works for you. Super Soldier says, I'm a noob and they hired me as a noob, so it's definitely self-inflicted wounds. Just grateful to be part of the team and work from home. Work from home is nice. Fencer, good to see you. Weldon helped work with you in 2013-14 on some graphic stuff for esports coaching org you were organizing. Oh yeah, that was a esports coaching network, right? ECN. I was just reminiscing about that with my wife because I'm like, we're talking about getting it back together. Yeah. You should join the Discord. We can keep chatting. It'd be fun. This person just threw a bread at a cat gif in the Discord. I wonder what that was about. I don't know what it says here. Oh, I didn't put a link. I put a Discord announcement, but with no link. It's kind of funny. Maybe that was the problem. Okay. There's no... How do you do this whole thing where people put an exclamation point into Twitch and then it feeds them back a chat message to them about what it is? Don't really know how to do that, but Where is the settings where I can find my invites? Is it user settings? No, that's user settings. I want server settings. Server settings, invites. Okay, here's the general chat. Wait, I can't click it because I have streamer mode on. How do I find an invite to my own Discord? Okay, it's in my panels. Great. Is it even? I gotta go look at my channel. Look at my channel. Mute. Donate. Wait, I still have Counter Logic Gaming on here? What the heck? Okay, let's remove that. Discord. YouTube. That. Remove Streamlabs. I don't really use Snapchat anymore. Guess I could remove that. Whatever. It's there. No tools anymore. It's basically all on Patreon. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook is all right. I'm going to get rid of Facebook. I don't want people in that group. It's irrelevant. Main thing is I need to add a panel for the Patreon, right? ps:/patreon.com/mindgamesweldon. Submit. How does this work? Oh, I need to add a picture and I didn't. Whatever. I can fix that later. How do I go back to the chat? There it is. All right. I think I can call it a night and start to process the show. So I'll go and get the podcast up on YouTube. And thanks for joining, everybody. Thanks for joining me on the show and my return to Twitch. Make sure to subscribe. Remember that if you subscribe on Twitch or on YouTube or on Patreon, that you get the Mind Games program, which I was previously selling for $35. If you've previously purchased it, you don't have to buy it again. You can just email me and I'll send you the program. But if you subscribe, you get it included for free, as well as the members-only Discord channel. So make sure to check that out. And I will see you later. Any last questions before I go? Yes. Letician asks, do you think there's any chance you'll ever do public coaching sessions for existing or new clients? Yeah, for sure. I don't have any existing clients. I'm not doing pro coaching anymore. I'm doing research. I'm a researcher, doctoral researcher. But I'll totally do content-based trainings for content. So anytime, for sure. I think that's like the way forward, right? Because I don't really want to do it for money anymore. Partly I don't need to. Partly it's not worth the tax issues. Partly I don't want to do the sales process. It's kind of annoying. But yeah, content-based sports psych training for sure. Be super fun. Anyway,